Hi guys, welcome to a new series on the channel that I have decided to call the 37 Miracles series. The main purpose of this is just going to be to go through all 37 of the documented miracles that Jesus performed while he was on earth. I'm Bible with Mike, and I am going to do this in probably a series of 6 or 7 different videos because I want to do them 5 or 6 at a time. And the reason is because rather than just listing off to you 37 different miracles, I want to cover them with a little bit of context. And with 5, we can give a little bit of context, talk about the miracle. I can source exactly where it is in the scripture so you can follow and read along, but I'm going to try to do them also in the order that they occurred. Now, as we get towards the middle, you'll see that there's a couple that the timeline is a little bit wonky on if this happened first or that happened first, just because we're going to be going from gospel to gospel from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But today I'm going to go through miracles 1 through 5. So if you want to follow along in the word and obviously with this series, please subscribe. Turn on your notifications so you can be alerted for the next time. Hopefully I'll put one of these out once a day. We'll get through all 37 of those miracles in about a week. So thank you guys very much. Let's get on to the first one. Now, the first miracle we're going to cover, and I'm sure everybody is screaming at your screens right now, is Jesus turning water into wine. We see this in John chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. And it takes place in the land of Cana. In Cana, Jesus and his disciples were all invited to this wedding, and while they were at the wedding, they ran out of wine. Now, this was a major social crisis in the culture at the time, because if a wedding ran out of wine, or if guests had a bad time, it was considered a bad omen for the marriage. So, Jesus turns 6 stone water basins into some of the finest wine that they had ever tasted. It wasn't just a party favor, it was, first off, the very first sign of his glory, because obviously it was a miracle being performed, but it demonstrated that Jesus had come and that he was the Messiah who was there to establish a new covenant. So even though it was just water into wine, it was a completely significant moment in biblical history. Everybody knows the first miracle, but the second miracle in the Bible is a little bit more significant for showing off the true strength and majesty of his power. If you've ever seen the show The Chosen, this is that moment in that series where Gaius comes and asks Jesus to heal his son. The Chosen cast took a little bit of liberty there by naming him in John chapter 4, verse 43 through 54. This is where this story comes from. It doesn't name him as Gaius, but what it does say is an official from Capernaum came and traveled all the way to Cana to beg Jesus to heal his son. Jesus didn't even have to leave Cana. He didn't have to travel to Capernaum from Cana in order to heal him. He spoke the word from a distance. The boy was healed at that exact moment, and this taught the people at the time, but also us, that the distance between us and God has no barrier towards his power, and that his faith and our faith is honored even from afar. And now moving on to the third miracle, we find this in the book of Mark, chapter 1, verses 21 through 27. And this happened in Capernaum. So Jesus and the disciples had already left from Cana. They traveled back to Capernaum. As Jesus entered into a synagogue there, a man cried out to Jesus. Now it says that this man had an unclean spirit, and Jesus, recognizing that demonic presence, called out and cast out that demon, and it obeyed him immediately. Now, the people inside the synagogue at the time were absolutely awestruck at this because, one, they had probably seen that man there babbling and screaming and doing whatever demons do, and as soon as Jesus entered and commanded out that presence, it listened, the man ceased, but they were also just completely overwhelmed with the authority and presence of this man who was able to command and cast out demons. This miracle reminds us and taught them that Jesus had complete dominion over everything that existed inside the spiritual realm. And it's a very significant miracle both at the time and now. For our fourth miracle, we're going to jump around, as I said, into a bunch of the Gospels. This one is in Matthew chapter 8, verse 14 and 15. This is one of the more intimate miracles that Jesus performed in the entire Bible. And Jesus enters into Simon Peter's house and sees his mother-in-law is stricken and suffering from a high fever. What Jesus did is he simply reached out his hand and laid it upon her. And as soon as Jesus touched her hand, her fever went away. Not only did she feel better, but she felt so good that she immediately got up out of her slumber from that high fever and began to try to serve them food and drink. This was a very quiet, very intimate miracle showing us that Jesus cares deeply about the personal needs of our family and our daily lives. This one wasn't done in the presence of great multitudes. It was done in a very intimate setting, showing us the true presence and power of Jesus' love, even in the miracles he performed. And now finally, for the fifth miracle that we see, the fifth miracle that happened in the timeline happened in the town of Capernaum. And what it says in Matthew chapter 8, verse 16 and 17 is that the whole town gathered at the door. Now, at the time, we saw tons of different references throughout the Gospels of Jesus being a wise teacher. But Jesus healed all of these people, which proved to the town and to obviously us that Jesus wasn't just a wise teacher. He was a compassionate healer who poured himself out for the needs of the hurting. Now, it's important to note that you can find a lot of these miracles I named in all the different Gospels, right? This one in particular you can find like in Mark 1 verse 33. But the reason why I mention this one is because Matthew points something out that's extremely significant. I would encourage you to please go read this one for yourself if you're going to read any of these. But Matthew notes that this fulfilled a prophecy that was written down all the way back in the time of Isaiah. It says that he took up our infirmities and bore our diseases. And again, we can see the truth of that in the miracles he performed, but specifically in the miracles of the last two, right? So where he's healing Simon Peter's mother-in-law, but also here where he is healing literally a town full of people of any of the ailments and maladies that were ailing them at the time. Now that's 5 miracles down and 32 documented ones to go. Each one of these acts and all of the miracles we're going to see are going to show a different side of the heart of Jesus. Which one of these first 5 was one that you had never heard before? Obviously, we know water into wine, but let me know in the comments. I really love reading them. I really love the engagement. It does a lot for keeping me going with making these kind of videos. They take a lot of research, especially something like this. Please make sure that you're subscribed so that you don't miss the next episode, and especially the next episode, we're going to cover some pretty impressive miracles. One I'm going to call the miraculous catch, which I'm sure you guys probably already know what that is, and then also the healing of the leper. I will see you there. Please again, turn on your notifications and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Until next time, bye.